So up next we have Cragmore 12. This one is from Speyside.
So we went 12, 14, and this is, we're getting back into 12 now too, right?
We go 12, 14, 12, 12, 10, and 16. So age statement in this regard doesn't necessarily mean the younger the age, the more robust the whiskey. Because you saw we went, what, 12, 14, back down to 12, 12. So it's the area at which it's distilled, how they distill it, and what they use to mature the whiskey kind of give it the different flavors. Because, like I said earlier, it's malted barley and water. So,
which, I mean, it's the same thing here. I mean, we can have a Texas
exactly.
bourbon aged 2 years that's going to have the same effect as a Kentucky that's aged 4,
Exactly.
or a New York that's aged 12.
Well, and it's like you could take the exact same mash bill from distillery A, take it to distillery B, distill that whiskey, same 100% mash bill, put it in a barrel, age it for the exact same amount of time, and have two different products.
Right.
And you see that all day long at the same distillery.
Oh, sure.
You can pull two barrels that were distilled on the same day, put in the warehouse right next to each other, pull whiskey from each, and they have two different, I mean, they're obviously going to be similar in some regard, but they're going to have different characteristics to them. So it's not surprising you get so many different variations, even from the same two ingredients.
Do they agitate barrels?
You talking about like move them, spin them?
Yeah.
Probably not as much as we do here, just because of the climate, because of how hot it gets. I would have no doubt if you're going to let a barrel sit for 16 years, you might want to move it around a little bit. But I'm not in Scotland, so I wouldn't know. I didn't dig that deep. I did good notes. I just didn't dig that deep. I was telling.
That wasn't on that list of questions ahead of time.
It's like I literally waited to the last minute to finish all of this. I took better notes on this than I did any test in my entire life. So this one does come from Speyside. This one is going to have. Does anybody get a dry nose off this one? I might be the last one finishing my glass. Everybody's probably already doing it.
It's not as harsh as smell. I feel like it's very smooth and easy compared to the first two.
So this one is the lowest alcohol percentage of the bunch, and that might have a slight bit to do. It's 40%, whereas the rest of these are 43%, I believe.
At least for the nose, I think. It's the second one was most like flavorful.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
But so Speyside. So this one is from Speyside. So it's this one is going to be the lighter, more floral, fruity flavors that you get. It's losing my spot. So there's generally two categories of Speyside. Like I said earlier, they're usually either heavy, rich, sherry flavored malts, or the more complex, light, floral flavored malts like this one is. So, any thoughts on this one?
It's good. I like it.
So kind of going down
I like
to
it
that,
too.
you know, versus the second one I thought had a much better nose on it. But this one then has, even though we're going down in proof a little bit, I feel like the profile is a little bit spicier.
On this one?
Again, I'm looking at that through bourbon lens.
Yeah.
But, even though the proof is lower on that, it hits a little bit hotter on that. But the nose doesn't do as much for me as the last one, the 14-year we did.
So, so that could be due to certain distillation processes. Aeneas Coffee was the first person to copyright or patent the coffee still, which is the continuous still. Now, at the time, this was back in the 1800s, the Irish didn't want to have nothing to do with it. They were like, well, no, we got our single pot stills. We want to keep doing it that way. We don't want that continuous still. So at that point, Mr. Coffee brought his still over to Scotland, and the Scottish were like, oh, we love that. So a lot of these malts they're going to have, similar to what we saw at TX.
I was about to say that
Well,
huge.
So they're going to have they're going to have the first copper pot still to do their wash. They're going to distill their wash. It's going to distill once, and then the second distillation is going to go up the column still. Now there are some distilleries in Scotland who still predominantly use just pot stills and not column stills. But funny thing that I found out, the tallest stills in Scotland are only 17 feet.
Oh heck.
Yeah, we
What was
50?
Firestone and Robertson? That was
50
Yeah.
ish. We had to walk up 2 flights of stairs just to
Did you
get
guys
to the
watch
top.
that on the Facebook? We did all the distillery tours. So we went to Firestone and Robertson, and Rob Arnold was walking us around, and so Kelly was with me on that, and he opened the doors, and we look up, and there's still, it's 3 flights of stairs up on that, and yeah, Kelly was talking about this kind of flight in that regard as well.
So it's a huge cost, and now they do produce quite a bit of their TX blended whiskey. So without giving out too much information, keep an eye, and I'm just going to go ahead and give you a little hint. Keep an eye on the stuff coming from Firestone and Robertson, because it will.
Yeah, you're getting close to that NDA.
That's right.
It'll be magnificent. So. So, has anybody, so we've all heard of like Glenlivet, Glenfiddich, now we have Glendronach.
Oh, sorry.
I get it.
That's what I'm worried about.
So does anybody, yeah, right, I don't want to join up. Does anybody know where the term Glen came from? So you have Glenlivet, Glenfiddich, Glendronach, Glengoyne, Valley. So Glen means valley. Now, does anybody know why it was started that way? So obviously in the valley, you're going to get all the water runoff coming downhill, downstream. But it was also, they found the places in these areas that it was easier for them to escape the tax man. So they would find the most accessible area. So thank you, Mr. Scotsman, for finding and eluding your obligations to your government. So this one, Glendronach, like I said earlier, is matured exclusively in sherry casks. Part of it is done in Pedro Jimenez casks, and the rest is done in Oloroso sherry casks. So this one is going to have a heavier, more robust flavor. Some of you might like it, some of you might not. And I think that's, you like it? You like it, Cornelius?
So you know, for me, like you were saying on the sherry cask, you know, we've done like second finishes or whatever, but this one definitely has as an intermediary between different whiskeys or bourbons, especially kind of going into this. This one doesn't have quite like the same like peatiness
No, this
to it at all. It's super smooth.
No peat at
It's
all.
a lot different, yeah.
Yeah, I've never had this, but you can smell it and taste it.
It's just, I mean, to me, it's
Right
it's
there.
sweet, creamy. It has some fruity notes to it. It's very heavy in the nose. I mean,
I might say this is the first Scotch I've ever tasted that had too many drinks. You can tell me it was a bourbon.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So for us, this would be like one, like if you want to like trick me or like coax me into like the Scotch world.
Yeah, if you want,
You start me off here, and then
this would be called Glendronach, and that's spelled Dronach.
If I want to drink wine, I'll drink wine.
So this one, so like what he said, this one actually has a slight, very, very faint bourbon feel to it, just because of the texture and the wood that it was matured in. The man who actually started this distillery was the second person to ever apply for a license to distill whiskey in Scotland. So, good on you.
What year did the distillery start?
This was established in 1826. So,
pretty new to the game.
pretty new to the game.
Yeah.
Does anybody? Now, I did touch on this one about the difference because this one is matured in sherry butts. The difference between a barrel, a hogshead, and a sherry butt. Did everybody catch that earlier?
Yeah.
So the size difference, barrels, which predominantly come from the U.S., are around 53 gallons. They should be 53 gallons. Now, whenever they get broken down, if they get sent to Scotland, they add a couple extra staves into it, which makes it bigger around. Doesn't make it any taller, it just makes it fatter. From then, it goes up to about 250 liters, which is around 66 gallons. But sherry butts are much, much larger. They're about twice the size of a hogshead, between 500 and 600 liters, which is around 128 to 150 gallons. So
again, the flavor profile that you're getting at even 12 years
so they
versus
exactly
what we're used to in our little pocket of the world.
yeah. And they can let specifically this label, Glendronach, every single one of their whiskeys, every single one of their malts is matured in sherry casks. So the 12-year, the 15-year, the 18, the 20 plus, they're all going to have similar flavor profiles, but they're obviously going to change with complexity because of the age. So, any thoughts on this one?
It's good.
Anybody like it?
Well, this one, again, for us coming from like the bourbon side, stepping in, this is the same thing as like walking into the pool instead of jumping in the deep end. It seems like a really easy like transitional one because it's not. This one doesn't. Again, like Preston was saying, you could trick me towards the end of the night.
And just thinking I was having a bourbon.
That's right. Yeah, this one definitely doesn't have that typical bourbon.
This specific distillery was actually the last distillery in Scotland to use a coal fire distillation system where they would heat up their stills and their mash barrels, whatever. I can't think of the word. It's not right, but anyway.
That's right. It's on the internet. You're fine.
Yeah, it'll be okay.
No one ever calls you on stuff.
My fans know how I roll, so
they're in Russia.
they know better. I'm standing up here trying to drink whiskey and talk to you people. So other notable whiskeys from Speyside would be your Johnny Walker, your Glenlivets, your Glenfiddichs. Most of those are going to have lighter, more floral tones. Now Glenfiddich, I know people have told me in the past, and the first time I ever drank Glenfiddich, I thought it tasted like a cigar. Now I drink it after experiencing the likes of Lafroig, Lagavulin, everything that Isla has to offer. I'm just like, oh man, that's just pretty.
So is that the climate along the River Spade, or is that just the tradition of the distillation along the River Spade? Is that the process or the?
People argue that. I feel like some people are like, it's climate, it's all climate.
Yes.
If you're on the Isles and you're close to the ocean, you're going to have a peaty Scotch and such
So
and such. But I think distilling has to have.
So it's 6 to 1, half to.
So I think a lot of it has to do with the distillation process, what their stills look like. The water itself in this area, I don't think is going to change much from distillery to distillery, but the type of stills they have, I think is going to affect it mostly.
Yeah, oh yeah. We're getting there now. Wait till you get that.
Kelly, why would you add Johnny Walker to that mix? So all the malts that are in the blended Johnny Walker
No. Just the distillery itself is in Speyside. Now, if you drink a Johnny Walker Blue, you might taste a little bit of smoke. Some of that smoke is going to come from Isla. So Johnny Walker is a blended malt. So that's another good one. That's another good little subject to touch on.
Thank you, Rhett.
Thank you, Rhett. Appreciate it. I got funny stories about Rhett. So, so how many